The secret of mastering self-control or self-discipline. And something to think about is, what beauty could possibly be maintained in a painting without the support of a frame? How can we, even on the individual level when it comes to becoming our highest forms of self, how are we truly to become beautiful in any sense if we don't have a frame? If we don't have a framework to our existence, if we don't have disciplinary routines, how are we going to make anything beautiful? How are we going to, as individuals, become beautiful in the face of the world? So what is the secret of mastering self-control? And I believe that the common misconception is that people think that more willpower equals more self-control. But I don't believe this to be true at all. Instead, it's about eliminating choice altogether when it comes down to what exists within your reality. Especially when it comes down to wanting to develop and refine a certain habit so that it becomes automatic. So that you don't have to think about doing it, but you just do it straight away. When people have bad habits, unhealthy habits, they do these things without thinking. Like addictions, for example, it's just part of the individual. And they have to come to a point of self-awareness where they're I don't want to be doing this anymore. But ultimately, I don't think it's about summoning a new dose of willpower. This is no different from kind of relying on the short-term fuel of motivation to become disciplined. Motivation doesn't give you discipline. Discipline, if you wanted to put a definition by it, it's doing what you don't want to do or what you hate to do, but doing it like you love doing it. It's kind of a good way of looking at it. Discipline is getting the thing and the shit done when you don't want to be doing it. There are going to be times when you want to do a certain thing or whatever, but it's when you really don't want to do it. That's where the discipline comes in. So it's not about summoning a new dose of willpower. It's just no different from motivation. And that's where you get the whole burnout thing. Because people get burnt out because another dose of willpower, another dose of motivation, and I can get this thing done. I can go into that destination. But ultimately, it doesn't really do the trick because we're not looking at the situation in a multidimensional way. Willpower, yeah, it's good, but it's not the antidote to getting everything completed. There are many other hurdles in the way that need to be attended to before anything can really occur, until we can actually really change or get to a point of transformation fundamentally. Now, why do I believe this isn't, the case, more willpower equals more self-control? Because choice damages real self-control, And that's why we need to look at choice, eliminating choice. Because choice allows for too many variables to get involved in your ambition, which has the possibility, the choice itself, the possibility to change the direction of the willpower itself, which will lead you to failure. So it's the fact that there are variables involved in relation to your willpower. Your willpower can then just go into different possibilities, kind of like the roots of a tree. It can just spread into these different things, and then what happens is that our actions become mediocre because we're I'm getting distracted with this, so I'm going to put my willpower into this. I'm getting distracted with this other thing, this, that, and then everything kind of dissipates into these other streams, and then the ultimate stream that we want to be in doesn't get given the amount of attention that we want it to have. So choice is kind of the enemy of a good habit if you want the good habit to remain an automatic behavior. Therefore, deleting choice by streamlining the will in one direction so it never becomes sidetracked or obscured with distraction. Choice will always be the enemy of automation, especially when you want to automate healthy habits. So the best way of doing this is not by trying to arise within you more willpower or anything like that towards the singular action of a goal or a desire, but instead apply that energy to the other dimensions that are included within that goal and desire. People often forget that there are other elements or dimensions of life that require an equal amount of attention. If you wish to achieve success, that isn't just about doing the behavior itself. This is where you have the saying, working smart instead of working hard. People who work smart, people who look at the other dimensions of their reality, and then they apply the same amount of energy to those other dimensions. For example, adapting your environment towards the full support of your ambition and goal is one of those things that go amiss a lot. This is called, in modern psychology, environmental priming, where you prime your environment for the good habits that you want. Okay, so it's kind of like you are creating your environment not as a space that you just live in and it's kind of mundane, but as a space that is activated with triggers, cues for good habits all the time, so that you're always working towards your most optimal version of yourself. But this is also known more traditionally for hundreds of years in traditional Chinese culture, known as Feng Shui. And Feng Shui is an ancient Chinese traditional practice which claims to use energy forces to harmonize individuals with their surrounding environment. So it's about making sure your environment rewards you with health, so that you are, so that, like, as they would say, maybe like you want to align yourself to the qi, as they would say. So how can you create that balance in your environment? How can you create the balance that's going to get rid of the bad habits? How can you create the balance that's going to uphold the good behaviors, get rid of the bad ones? What do you need to eliminate in your environment? What do you need to heighten? What do you need to increase? Things like that. That's what Feng Shui is about. And that's what kind of like the modern interpretation of like environmental priming is also about. How do you increase friction towards things that are negative that you want to get rid of to stop doing? Same type of stuff. This is the missing piece and secret to mastering self-discipline, because your environment is what facilitates behavior. It's the facilitator. It's the system, ultimately. If it's not optimized towards your highest singular goals, then your environment is only going to facilitate the opposite of the goal. It's going to facilitate confusion and distraction. This is why it's more than just mindset that is involved with all of this stuff, with self-control, self-discipline, all of this. And, it's about your entire mind, body, and environment. It has to be unified in the same bioenergetic mission, towards the same bioenergetic mission that you create for yourself. If not, you will only breed mediocrity because of the incompetence and ignorance of not being holistic with regards to everything. So in this instance, you could say, the frame, like I was saying in the beginning, the frame is more important than the painting, for if there is no frame, no beauty can be held within it. So when you do this, there will be no room for excuses, there will be no room for inconsistency or distraction, because your activated environment will flood your mind and body with positive encouragement and reinforcement, while also drowning out any negative distraction that will try and lead you astray from the highest potential. And this is why I like what it says in the book of Matthew in the New Testament, in the Holy Bible, where it says, "Enter ye at the straight gate." Because you have to go up on the narrow path. You have to go up within the narrow gate with this type of stuff to be of self-control, be of discipline. "Enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction." Bad habits, temptations, they all lead to destruction. They lead to death because of sin. "And many there be which go in thereat, because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it." So that is my take on self-control. You need to give focus to your environment when it comes to self-control, but also discipline, because it's ultimately what is described as discipline. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to share it about and give it a like. And of course, if you're interested in the webinar that I'll be holding on Thursday next week, called Unlocking the Mechanics of Individuation, make sure to sign up. It's definitely going to be worth your while if you want to, cut out all of that mystical BS that they talk about with regards to Jungian psychology and actually get down to the roots of figuring out what real practical advice, methods and perspectives there actually is with this kind of stuff with regards to individuation. That's what the whole webinar is about. So if you are interested in that, on the 2nd November I'll be holding that webinar on Zoom. You can find a link in the description where you'll have a whole description on the website of things I'm going to be going over, topics that are going to be very important and vital to the webinar. And if you're trying to go upon that individuation path, the self-actualization path, then it's definitely going to be for you, because I'm just going to be talking about practical things, pragmatism within the webinar. But apart from that, of course, if you also want to do one-on-one coaching and you want to jump in for a free one-on-one call and see how we can work with each other, you can also find a link in the description as well. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check that out. And with that all said, I'll speak to you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.